So we just finished talking about informational social influence, and we ended with that Barron study that really shows how the um, the things that are important for the situation to fire off the informational social influence. Now we're going to switch gears to the other reason why conformity happens is going to be normative social influence. So um, the main motivation here is that we want to be liked by other people, and so what's going to happen is that we decide to act based on how other people are acting because we want to be accepted by the group. Notice how this is very different from informational. Remember, if we're informational, it had nothing to do with being liked by the group, is that we thought other people knew information we didn't. Here, on the other hand, it's not the case. So, therefore, because it has nothing to do with it, what does it have to do with? And we conform because we don't want to be the odd man out. We don't want to be that person who's different. And, if you don't, and, this is all over the place. So, this is the case where you get that real or perceived group pressure really coming in. And if, just look at the way that you guys dress. All right. What you'll see is that everyone at this college looks the same when they dress. So, for example, for females, what they'll do here at the college, female students in particular, is they'll wear the super high boots like they're riding a horse. But there's no horses around. But why does everyone do that? Why does everyone wear those high boots? Or why do guys and girls wear and buy jeans with like holes already cut into them? Like, that makes no sense, right? And what's happening here is that the fashion statements of the day are basically normative social influence. There's no one pointing a gun to your head saying, like, you have to dress this way or else you're kicked out of Gettysburg College. But it's just that we don't want to be the person dressed weirdly. And, and why is that the case? Because, what's going to happen here is if you're the odd man out, you're going to feel judged, right? What I used to do is I used to have a social psych assignment where I would have them break what's called social norms. And social norms are like these unwritten rules that indicate what is and what is not normal behavior. And so what I used to have my students do is they would take a little sticker and they would put it on their forehead and go to Servo and eat. And what they would do is they would have to, for the assignments, they'd have to write down their reactions. And the most common response is that people felt judged. And people felt that they were being looked at weird. And that doesn't make us feel good. And so to combat that, what you do is you just dress and act like everyone else. Now, what's interesting about this is there are easy circumstances where there is the metaphorical gun to your head. So, for example, I believe it's on Wednesdays, maybe, where certain fraternities and sororities, they have to wear their, like, certain apparel with, like, their fraternity or sorority, like, Greek letters on it. And that is like a rule, right? You have to do that. And that's just the way it works. That's real pressure. But this is the kind of thing where you just don't want to be the odd man out. All right. So the first study that really did this, I'm hoping you heard about this in Gen Psych, is the ASH study. And what happened in the ASH study was participants were told, and I'll show you pictures of this in a second, is that participants told it was a study about judgments of lines. And they were shown a standard line and then 3 comparison lines, and you just had to say what matches. And what happens is at first the participants did it alone, and then what happened is Confederates came in, and what's going to happen is the Confederates are going to start to get the answer wrong. Now, what's cool about this, and let me show you the pictures. What's cool about this, so this is like the standard line they would see, and these are the comparison lines. What's really neat about this is there is a clear answer. And I'll show you percentages in a second, but there is a clear answer. This is an easy task for a lot of people. And so what's going to happen is you see this line here, and you have to figure out which one of these 3 match. All right. Now, this is easy to do. It's easy to get the right answer for this. So therefore, the situation is not ambiguous. And what's going to happen is, remember, the participant does it alone, and then after they do it alone, Confederates start to chime in, and these Confederates start to get the answer wrong on purpose. So these are actual pictures. I cannot find the actual ASH study footage from the 50s on YouTube or anything. There is they redid this in like the 70s, and I can find that, but I'm looking for the black and white version. So these are still shots from it. So you can see the real participant there, and you can see kind of how it works. So you have lots of different Confederates, all the same sex, lots of Confederates, and what's going to happen is I want you to look at this guy's face. So I love this video because this is the real participant, and look at his face. He's kind of making the face like, what? Right? So it's like, imagine that they saw these lines right here. This person goes first, and he says, oh, the answer is 1. Clearly, then, this person's like, what just happened? Like, is this guy crazy? Like, that's the face that guy's making. And that's the way this worked. And the question then becomes, does this participant right here, the real participant, this guy, does he conform? He knows what the right answer is, but does he go with the group? All right, does he go with the group? Now, even though I'm not going to ask you percentages on the Barron study, these percentages are testable because they are so influential to social psych. All right, so these percentages are testable. So first, let's do this. So when individuals were alone, they got the answer right 98% of the time. This is the indicator that this task right here, the line task, was really easy. Almost 100% of the people were getting it right. All right, so it's really easy. Now, when these same individuals were now in a group, they were correct 63% of the time. So first, a couple things. First of all, let's look at this difference here. All right, that difference is about 35%. All right, 35% difference. Now, if they were correct 63% of the time, that means they were not conforming. Remember, the Confederates started getting the answer wrong on purpose. So really, even though it's 63% of the time that participant was correct, that's fine. What that means is 37% of the time there was conformity. All right, so that means individuals in the group conformed 37% of the time. They got the answer wrong, even though they knew what the right answer was. And finally, remember, they did this multiple trials. It wasn't just like a single line and then see you later. They did this lots of times. And what they found is that over time, 76% of people conformed at least one time. So these are the people, so across all the trials, they got the answer wrong once when they knew what the right answer was. All right. And I just wanted, so this is the graph of these two percentages here. And I just wanted you to highlight the difference. This is 98%. This is 63%. Look at this drop. This drop right here, that is social influence. All right, that is social influence. That is the power of the situation, the pressure that they're feeling makes that drop occur. All right, and once again, 37% of people ended up conforming. All right, 37%. Now, what we know is that we have normative social influence, but why isn't it informational? And the answer is because the situation's not ambiguous. And so, like I said on the previous one, what you have to do is you have to, if I presented you with something like this on a test, is you have to figure out, is the situation ambiguous or not? And if the answer is yes, it is ambiguous, you're living in an informational world, like the Sharif study, okay? If the answer is no, it's not ambiguous, there's a clear answer and everyone and their brother knows it, then you're living in a normative world, like the Asch study. So when I learned this, I always learned it with acronyms. So I always learned conformity, Asch, normative, CAN. And then the other one, it was CSI. It was conformity, Sharif, informational, CSI. I don't know if that helps you or not, but that's what helped me. And what's going to happen here is the reason why normative social influence kicks in, remember, is that we have this fear of being that odd man out. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be like, why am I going against the group? All right. Now, what's going to happen is it's going to lead to normative social influence is going to lead to something called public compliance. Remember, the Sharif study, they led to private acceptance. In the Sharif study, remember, they actually believed their line judgments with the group when they did it alone later. Well, this isn't the case. Remember, public compliance is where you say something, but you secretly disagree. So in a follow-up study, what Asch did in 57 is he did the same procedure, but instead So all the Confederates said what the line judgment was, but the participant was special. He got to write his answer down on a sheet of paper rather than saying it out loud. And what he found is that, in terms of conformity, only 12.5% of people did it. And remember, before, it was 76% of people did it, at least once. All right, that is a big difference. And remember, and the reason why this is happening is that people just don't want to be singled out. So when does this work? All right. Well, it's not about accuracy. Oh no. It's not about accuracy. It's all about the wanting to feel good. We do this because we want to feel good, and being judged makes us feel bad. All right. So let's talk about the Barron study. All right. So remember, this is not like study 2. This is the second half of the study. So remember, the first manipulated independent variable was this importance thing, or accuracy as they called it. Remember, that was low versus high. The low was a beta test. The high was used by police. The eyewitness identification test was used by judges, and you got paid $20. So that was the first independent variable. There was actually a second independent variable in this study, and that independent variable was the ambiguity. So remember, in the first time we talked about this, it was ambiguous because the images were only presented for half a second. But that was actually a manipulated independent variable. So the second half of this was to make it unambiguous. So the correct answer was clear. Instead of half a second, it was 5 seconds per face. So this is actually a 2x2 design. All right. And what they found is something that looks like this. So remember, this is the percent who conformed on the y-axis. If the situation was really, really, really important, all right, and what's going to happen, remember, is the Confederates in this Barron study are going to start to get the answer wrong. But the deal is, you know the right answer because it's unambiguous. You know the right answer. So now when it's really important, you're not going to conform. You're not going to go with the group because it's that important. But when the importance is low, all right, when it's unimportant, what's going to happen here is all of a sudden now you're just like, they all said the answer wrong. The task isn't that important. I don't want to be the weird guy who gets it wrong. You conform more. This is the exact opposite findings that you found for the informational piece of this thing. All right. So what's really cool about all this is we have kind of different processes going on related to social influence. And this is where the researchers started to come together to figure out what was going on with all this Nazi stuff and why do people just obey Hitler. And the reason is it's either informational or normative. And what's happening now is for the informational social influence, it's ambiguous. And so the situation's ambiguous. You don't know the right answer, so you think other people do. So you go along with them, especially when it's highly important. But when it's normative, so it's no longer ambiguous, you know the right answer. What's going to happen is the motivation there is instead of looking at people for the right answer, you're going to look at people and be like, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be the odd man out. I know they're wrong, but all right, I'll go with them. And what's going to happen is now importance will matter here, where if it's very, very important, you're okay being the odd man out. But when it's not important, you see here, it's not so much the case. All right, so when we get back, we're going to talk about the social impact theory, because I'm running out of time on this video.